Namaste everyone and welcome back. I will start the invocation. Om Bhadram karnebhiः shrunuyam devaः Bhadram pashyemakshabhiryajatraः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवांसस्तनूभिः व्यशेमदेवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. I will chant first 7 verses. Om Mundaka Upanishad, chapter 1, section 1. Mundaka 1, Prathama, Khanda Prathama. Om Brahma Devanam Prathama Sambhapuva Vishwasya Karta Bhuvanasya Gopta Sa Brahma Vidyam Sarva Vidya Pratishtham Atharvaya Jeshtaputraya Praha Atharvaniyam pravadeta brahma Atharvatam purovachangire brahma vidyam Sabharadvajaya satyavahaya praha Bharadvajo angirase paravaram Shaunako havai mahashalaha Angirasam vidivadupasannah prapacha Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte Sarvamidam vijñātam bhavatīti Tasmai sahovacha Dve vidye veditavye iti hasmayat brahmavido vadanti parachaiva paracha tatra pararigvedo yajurvedas samavedo atharvavedaha shiksha kalpo vyakaranam niruktam chando jyotishamiti atha parayaya tadaksharam yate yattadadreshyamagrayamagotramavarnam achakshushrotram tadapaanipadam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam tadavyayam yadbhutayonim paripashyanti dhiraha yathornanabhisrajate gृह्णते cha yatha prithivyamo sambhavanti yatha satah purushat keshalomani tathaksharat sambhavati havishvam. So we are seeing verse 6 and verse. In the 6th verse, The Upanishad has indicated what is Paravidya, and in indicating that, it has dismissed Vidya which is acquired. So it has equated Brahma Vidya to Paravidya, which means knowing oneself as Brahman alone is what is qualified as Paravidya. So all that one learns in the Vedanta Parampara is to uncover, unconceal the words with the help of the methodology which gets pointed through Shastra mantras and shlokas in the Parampara. So, the first section of this Upanishad has very clearly addressed, is continuing to address the question that has been asked. And if we understand the question ourselves with our limited understanding, the question seems a bit absurd. How is it possible to know that one thing with which everything can be known? Here lies the prakriya, here lies the methodology that gets unfolded. Here lies the genius, as best as I can think. To know anything, you trace its origin. When you start looking backward, you go on tracing it backward. You want to know more about something. You start examining it. And one of the important criteria of examination is, where has it come from? What has caused it? What has produced it? Or what is it that it is representing? Anything, according to any quality, attribute that you see in the objects around you, which you want to know better. So the tracing of thought is towards knowing from where it has arisen. If we are able to understand from where has the world arisen, where has this creation arisen from? What is the cause of this creation? What is the root of this creation? Science is trying to unfold it by going into the world, tracing its origin within the attributes of the world. When did the world start? When did creation begin? Vedanta is addressing creation by tracing where has it come from. In the sense, what has caused creation? Science is also bringing, but within the realms of matter. Vedanta's vision is all matter, whatever you will trace in science as the cause of the creation, will again go backwards, and you can again ask, where has that come from? Then that you will ask, where has that come from? So it's an anavastha. Anavastha means it is a logical fallacy. Everything that you discover, oh, this has caused this, then what has that been caused by? And you go backward and backward and backward and backward, and it's an endless cycle. It's anavastha. You can never reach the first cause. Vedanta is saying here in Shaunaka's question, what is that one thing knowing which I will know everything? Which means, whatever I see here in creation, how do I understand it? Because everything cannot be traced back. I cannot examine everything that I see and feel and contact. And in future, there'll be new things coming. In the past, there were things that are no longer there now, etc. So, what is it that you are going to focus on? Where will the examination lead itself? So, here Upanishad is establishing that the teacher has started answering it by saying, whatever is the cause of this creation, जगत का कारण, अगर ये पहचान लिया, if we have seen that, if we understand that, you will understand everything that is to be known here. Example we all know by now, pots and clay. I will not elaborate it. All pots are made up of clay. So if I know clay, I know all pots. What is this one, or what is that which is the karanam? And if you say this is the karanam, then but natural the world becomes, jagat becomes effect, karyam. Question is translated as, or is understood as, what is that karanam of this jagat which is the karyam? Kya karan hai iska? And we saw in 6th verse where he said that which is to be known as Paravidya was Aksharam. Aksharam is to be known, knowing which you will know everything. That Aksharam was explained in 6th verse. How will you know that Aksharam? He first goes through the process of negation. Everything in the world we want to know more, but the instrument of knowledge is in our Gyanindriya, eyes, ears, etc. With the help of Gyanindriya, we can know whatever these Indriyas are capable of knowing. So, can Brahman be known through Indriya? Shankara says, and the Upanishad says, no. It is not an Indriyon ka vishay. Which means, Shankara gave a very unique explanation. Why it cannot be known through the Indriyas? He says, because the very knowing depends upon your consciousness, awareness. When you say, I know, your knowledge itself is consciousness. That is centered outside. Indriyas are centering it outside. So the stream of consciousness through eyes is going out. Eyes is not going inside. Eyes are designed in a way that they will only reveal objects that are outside. Since the knowledge itself is what is to be acquired, which knowledge? Consciousness is knowledge, and that itself is to be known. It cannot obviously be known through the eyes because the stream is outside. The stream of consciousness goes out. These instruments, Gyanindriyas, work to direct the stream outside. So you cannot know it. You cannot know the consciousness through Indriya. Then can you reach it? No. You cannot even reach it through your karmendriya. So you cannot, it's not an object which can be collected. It's not that knowledge which you want to know. The bottom line is, neither of your equipments from the body will help it. to know it in its graspable form. It cannot be grasped. Knowledge, knowing which you will know everything, knowledge of that cannot be known through indriya, any indriya. It is not an object. And then he continued to say, it is not the very senses itself. With this, he said, then what is it? So, having negated entirely first, what is it? It is vibhum. It is vast. It is multifarious. It is multiples. It is multitudes. It is expansive. Vibhum. It is spread. It's plural. It's limitless. It's spread, expansive. Sarvagatam. It is everywhere. Susukshmam. It is extremely subtle. That what the indriyas pick up is what has got solidified, grossified. This knowledge, consciousness, Brahman, is extremely subtle, so it cannot be picked up by the indriya. Not only indriya, it cannot be picked up by instruments which the indriya use to enhance further. Like, for example, if my eyes are weak, then I pick up specs and I can see clearly. If I want to examine a virus, then I pick up the adequate instrument so that I can pick that out. Virus is sukshmam. I cannot see it with my eyes, I cannot hear it, I cannot feel it, I cannot smell it, I only suffer it if it comes. But I cannot be picking it up with the organs, but I can infer it with the help of added instruments which aid my primary indriya. So I can examine a bacteria under an electron microscope. I can examine things, I can pick them up when I enhance my indriyas externally. So sukshma means there is nothing ever, which will be capable even in the future. You will not be able to design something that can enhance the knowledge the indriya is gaining, and with that you can then probably know Brahman. It will not, it's sukshma. So whatever is sukshma, it is subtler than that. So whatever can be known is not Brahman. And known means you are keeping the knower separate from it. You are keeping the knower distinct from it. So as long as you are in the query of knowing and you are using the indriyas to know it, that is not paravidya. That is not knowledge. It is avyayam. It is partless, divisionless. It is whole. It is unfragmented. It cannot be divided. It has no parts. Important then was, now comes the extra layer from where the Upanishad moves into the next mantra. Yat bhuta yonim. It is also the yoni, the womb of all living beings. Of all living beings includes creation. All living beings. It is the womb of all living beings. This is how the dhiraha, those wise, qualified with sadhana chatushtayam, they see it. Then starts the 7th verse. Because 6th verse ends by saying, it is the womb of all living beings. We visualize that Vishnu is lying in the samudra, and from the womb, Brahmaji comes holding the Vedas, representing creation. Brahmaji representing creator, and Vedas is the knowledge of creation, and then the creation happens. Womb of all beings, past, present, future, any being. Question arises here, supposedly can come in any mind. If it has come from Brahman, all yonis, all living beings have come from Brahman, Bhuta Yonim, does that imply that Brahman and the beings are separated now? Have they been, is there a separation there? They have come from it. But that would be contradicting, because we said Brahman is divisionless. Paravidya is Brahman and Brahman is divisionless. So, divisionless remaining, Bhuta Yonim, it is also the yoni of all living beings. All living beings have come from it. They emerge from it. To answer that, dispel that, is this next verse which starts. And to explain that, Upanishad takes the example of 3 examples which are commonly seen everywhere. So Upanishad doesn't go into theory. Oh, it is possible. There is no vichara of examination, uha poha going on, that it can come. There are no schools around here. The minute the question is, if the creation has come from Brahman, is it now separated? To answer that, the Upanishad says, Yathorna nabhi srijate grinnate cha. Yathorna nabhi is spider. Just as a spider srijate, creates, grinnate, and then resolves back its creation. A spider, when it starts creating its web, what is the material with which it creates the web? Is its own from within itself. So it comes as a thread, and that thread, then it expands, and then you see that it engulfs it back. So Upanishad says, contemplate on the example. The example is given not as a reason for intellect. The 3 examples that come in this verse, they have their limitations like all examples have. We have to pick up only the point that is being specified here. Contemplate on the example. If the question is, how can something come from something without being separated? Example is how a spider weaves its web. When it starts creating a web, I think some of you have seen a photograph I took once. There was this beautiful spider going across the room just with one thread, and after some time you see half the thread disappearing and the spider still hanging there. Where is that thread going again? From its own self, the material of that web, creation of that web, material for the creation of the web, material for the creation of the web came from within spider itself. By indicating that, it says, draw the parallel to what it said in this verse previous. This world, this jagat, the material of this world, from where is it made? The material. Brahman must have material. Just as a pot maker has an instrument to make a pot. He has his wheel, he has fire, etc., etc. He needs something to make the pot. So the question obviously is, Brahman creates it from where? From what? What material does it have? What instruments does it have? Brahman creates jagat, just as a spider creates the web. The material of the web hasn't come from outside of spider. It didn't need a loan. It did not borrow from somewhere. It did not have to steal. It did nothing. It just took it out from its own self. The material was within. With that material, it created a web. Creation of a web implies that there is a doer. There is an intelligent, as Ramana says, kartuhu. There is an intelligence functioning behind it. The web has an intricate design with a purpose. Spider has created it. Material for it is its own self, from its own self. And the minute it is created, it is sustained by what? By its own self. And when the purpose is or whatever else, that there's some fear or something, it resolves it back within with no trace behind. The entire thread is absorbed inside again. Shastra says, mantra says here, Brahma Vidya means knowing Brahman as Adrishyam, Avyayam, etc. Agrahyam, Avyayam. Knowing Brahman as that, which means whatever is there to be known, in Jagat, its cause is Brahman. And if the cause is Brahman, then the entire material with which Brahman has affected Jagat has come from within Brahman. It is all Brahman. It is all ultimate in its material. Brahman becomes the material cause of Jagat. Spider is the material cause of the web, because without spider there is no web created. But web seems to be outside of the spider, but it is never out of contact from the spider, because if it was, that means spider would not have been able to withdraw the web, the thread. So while it is weaving the web, Nabhi, just as from Vishnu, Nabhi. The web has its Nabhi is the spider. It is still connected, nourishing it. This Jagat, Nabhi is Brahman, getting nourished by Brahman. Brahman is the material cause, upadana karanam. It is the upadana is just the word, Sanskrit word for it, technical word for it. It is the material cause. What is the material cause of this world? 5 elements. Is it? Question is it? Then what is the material cause of 5 elements? Oh, and then when we go into the Panchikaranam, you come up to space. What is the material cause of space? Where does space come from? Oh, space is space, all pervasive, it's always there. Where does it come from? The questioner is not able to ask such a question because you inhabit space. Where has space come from means to know that, as I think Einstein says, you have to go outside space to measure space. Where did time begin? To know time, you will have to go outside time to calculate time. Where did it begin? In the same way, what is this material with which the world is made? This jagat is made, creation is made. Creation as in whatever, jagat word is the correct word. Creation is still a little misleading. This jagat, which you contact, in which you call jagrat avastha, the non-separateness of the knower as the individual and the objects as jagat. What is the karanam of this? See the question clearly. I have taken a shift. The question that Shaunaka has asked, knowing which, the answer is this creation is an effect, means it's caused. Caused by what? The karanam is Brahman. Brahman is the creator. Brahman is the, what material does it have? Brahman itself is the material. Having the material itself as that, as Brahman, this is Jagat. Who am I as the knower of the Jagat? This individual who is also part of Jagat, because that is called Jagrat Avastha. This individual who is a part of the Jagrat Avastha waking state. What is the common between me, the individual, and the Jagat? That common one, knowing which I will know both, because they are inseparable. Knowing which I will know both, and that Brahman, in this example of spider and web, mantra says reflect, reflect, and reflect. Contemplate on it. There's no more words needed to understand, explanation needed. Contemplate, just as from a spider the web has come, so from Brahman Jagat has come. Brahman is the upadana karanam and the intelligent principle, means nimitta karanam of this Jagat. Okay? If that is so, then that means the separation is implied there. It is separate. Jagat is separate. To offset that separation, that bhuta yonim, it is not separate. The web is not separate from the spider, even though it is seen separate. Comes the second example. And the second example is yatha prithivyam oshadhaya sambhavanti. Just as from Prithvi, Aushadhi is born, plants and trees are born. Just as from the earth, Aushadhi, which sustains life, is born. Which means earth itself, composed of minerals, the food and trees and everything, is also nothing but earth itself. So while they seem to be separated, they are not separate. It is the same. This remaining the same, then comes another question that can arise, that world is inert. Jagat is inert matter. How is it possible that Either from inert conscious being comes, or from conscious being inert can come. From Brahman comes jagat. How is that possible? One is conscious, another is inert. If someone thinks like that, to offset that is the third example. And the third example is Yatha Satah Purushat Keshalo Mani. Keshaha is hair. Loma is all hair which is everywhere else other than head on the body. Just as on human being, hair comes on any living being. From the conscious being, dead matter comes in the form of hair. So even if you cut it, you don't feel pain. This can also be extended to nails, are also dead. So just as from a living being, dead matter is an extension, has come from it. In the same way, Brahman being the upadana nimitta karanam, remaining also the womb of all creations, non-separate from it, changelessly so, the one who knows it, tatha aksharat sambhavatiha iha vishwam. The one who can understand those dhirahas, they see that just as in these three examples is shown, from one comes the other. In the same way, tatha aksharat, from aksharat, Brahman, akshara Brahman, sambhavatiha, origins, iha vishwam. This vishwam, and vishwam we've seen now means the world, vishwa, jagat, whatever your senses can contact is all falling in vishwam. So what is Brahman? In the previous verse, adreshyam agrahyam agotram avarnam achakshushrotram tat apani padam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam tat avyayam yat bhutayonim. That bhutayonim, how is this possible to be known? Because it is not knowable by senses. How will you ever grasp it in the sense of understanding it? Just as it is possible, you see it in life, in the examples around, just as the spider creates the web from plants, from earth comes the plants, and from conscious being comes the inert matter, so too Brahman becomes the upadana nimitta karanam of jagat. And knowing this non-separation of Brahman and jagat, which implies me, the individual knower, this individual knower who knows the jagat otherwise and believes himself to be all-knowing, is also known, and that falls in jagat, cause of which is Brahman. Knowing that is Paravidya. And then he continues in the next verse. He will be talking about how and further emphasizing about it, which I think we will take in the next class, one verse at a time. So if there's any question, immediately either you can comment or you can send a mail. Just remembering, so far the whole Upanishad has gone only establishing the parampara in the first 3 verses. And then the fourth verse, he started with the answer and the question. Fourth verse was the answer that started that there is two knowledges to be known. And then fifth verse, the teacher Angir has separated the paravidya and the aparavidya. From sixth verse, he has not. So in fifth verse, he had specified aparavidya. And in sixth verse, he has started with paravidya. What is it? And in the seventh verse, he's talking about this paravidya is vidya of Brahman, who is the jagat karanam and is non-separate, changeless, remaining changeless, also the material cause of jagat. And then the eighth verse, we'll take it up next time. We'll end the class here. Sarvesham swastirbhavatu. Sarvesham shantirbhavatu. Sarvesham purnam bhavatu. Sarvesham mangalam bhavatu. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. Sarve santu niramayah. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschit dukha bhag bhave. So, Hari Om everyone. And just if there's any question, I'll hold on for a minute. If you want to write anything. Otherwise, we'll end the class. Okay. Thank you, everyone.